Serious. What is the best unexplained mystery? Story 1. Chris Benoit, a professional wrestler, fatally harmed his wife and child at their home before ending himself. 14 hours before this incident came to light, a Wikipedia article noted that another wrestler would replace him in a match due to personal issues, including the death of his wife. The original article stated, Chris Benoit was replaced by Johnny Nitro for the ECW World Championship match at Vengeance because of personal issues arising from the death of his wife, Nancy. This edition was made at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on June 25th, while the Fayette County Police reportedly discovered the bodies of the Benoit family at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which was 14 hours and 29 minutes later. Interestingly, Chris himself did not make this edit. Authorities traced it back to Stamford, the location of WWE headquarters. There were other peculiarities in the case as well, such as bottles of alcohol and steroid needles found at the scene, despite no traces of alcohol or steroids being detected in Chris's body. Moreover, Chris had been exhibiting signs of paranoia in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. He had repeatedly texted one of his closest friends his address, despite the friend regularly visiting him and being familiar with his whereabouts moments before the incident occurred. Just goes to show what would happen if your vicious on-screen persona gets the best of you. Too many diving headbutts could damage your head and turn you into a rabid Wolverine. Story 2. Nicholas Barclay's story is like a puzzle with missing pieces. In 1994, he vanished from his home in San Antonio, Texas, leaving everyone confused. But after 3 years, he was found in Spain, near a phone booth. Sounds like a happy ending, right? Not quite. When Nicholas came back, things didn't add up. He couldn't remember much about how he ended up in Spain, and his English was weird, unlike how he used to talk. People said it was probably because he'd been through a lot and was trying to cope, but here's where it gets really strange. When Nicholas returned, his eyes were a different color. He tried to go back to his old life, school, and family, but something was off. Then a private eye uncovered the truth. Nicholas wasn't Nicholas at all. He was actually a guy named Frederick Borda, a trickster known for pretending to be missing kids. He got caught, and that's when things got even creepier. It turns out that before Nicholas vanished, his life was a mess, always causing trouble, fights at home, and problems at school. His mom thought bringing in Nicholas's uncle might help, but some say the uncle couldn't handle Nicholas and might have done something terrible to him. The family, maybe to avoid trouble, accepted Borda, pretending he was Nicholas. And when Borda got caught, guess what happened? Nicholas's uncle ended himself. That's the part that sends shivers down your spine. So many questions, no easy answers. Story 3. The case of Julia Wallace. At 52 years old, Wallace attended a meeting at the Liverpool Central Chess Club on Monday, January 19, 1931. While there, he received a telephone message 25 minutes before his arrival, asking him to visit an address at 25 Menlove Gardens East the following evening to discuss insurance with someone named Arm Qualtrough. The next night, Wallace boarded a tram to the city south at the designated time, only to realize there was no Menlove Gardens East. Despite inquiries at a nearby newsagent and discussions with a patrolling policeman, he couldn't find the address or Qualtrough. After about 45 minutes of searching, he returned home, frustrated. Meeting his neighbors, the Johnstons, on the way out, Wallace expressed his struggle to enter his home from either the front or back. Eventually, he managed to open the back door, only to find a horrific scene awaiting him. His wife, Julia, fatally roughed up in their sitting room. Until his arrest 2 weeks later, Wallace provided 2 voluntary statements but was never thoroughly interrogated by the police, despite his daily attendance at CID headquarters. During this time, he faced specific inquiries regarding the Wallace's maid, his insistence on the time the chess club message was taken, and whether he had spoken to anyone on his way home after his futile quest for Mr. Qualtrough. The police possessed evidence that the telephone box Qualtrough used to call the chess club was merely 400 yards from Wallace's home. However, the cafe attendant who handled the call was certain it wasn't Wallace on the line. Nonetheless, suspicions arose, implicating William Herbert Wallace as Qualtrough. Curiously, upon his arrest and charging, no further questions were posed to Wallace by the authorities. The police firmly believed Wallace could have committed the crime and still caught his tram. They conducted a test with a young detective replicating the crime and racing to the tram stop, suggesting it might have been impossible for an ailing 52-year-old Wallace. They altered the initial assessment to the time of death from around 8 p.m. to just after 6:30 p.m. without additional evidence supporting the earlier time. Forensic examination indicated Julia Wallace's assailant likely bore heavy contamination due to the vicious crime. However, Wallace's suit worn that night showed no stains. The police speculated that a bear Wallace might have used the Macintosh found under Julia's body to shield himself from splatter. Investigation of the bath and drains revealed no recent use or traces, except for a small clot in the toilet pan with an unestablished origin. Story 4. One that stands out is the disappearance of Ray Gricar. Ray Frank Gricar was an American attorney who held the position of District Attorney of Centre County, Pennsylvania from 1985 until 2005. On April 15, 2005, Gricar vanished under mysterious circumstances and hasn't been heard from since. After being missing for over 6 years with no trace, Centre County authorities declared Gricar legally dead on July 25, 2011. Here's the more detailed version. It was the DA overseeing Center County, which included Penn State University. There were rumors that at the time he vanished, he was looking into the Second Mile. This nonprofit organization for underprivileged youth, providing aid for at-risk children and support for their parents in Pennsylvania, was founded in 1977 by Jerry Sandusky, a then Penn State assistant college football coach. The authorities eventually located his car. The vehicle contained his county-issued cell phone, but not his laptop, keys, or wallet, and investigators found no signs of foul play. On July 30th, 2005, fishermen discovered Gricar's county-issued laptop in the Susquehanna River beneath a bridge between Lewisburg and Milton. The Pennsylvania State Police computer expert analyzed the computer and found that its hard drive was missing. 2 months later, someone found a hard drive in the banks of the Susquehanna River, approximately 100 yards from the laptop's location. Unfortunately, it was severely damaged, and despite analysis by the FBI, U.S. Secret Service, and the firm Kroll Ontrack, no data could be recovered from it. My theory is he might have been on the brink of exposing the Second Mile, rumored to be a ring of kitty fiddlers and Sandusky, but they caught wind of it. They got to him, eliminated him, and eradicated the evidence. This is a grim example of what sick monsters could do to hide their evil acts against the kiddies. Do you think this story is dreadful? Wait until you hear Story 7. The family there had a thrilling voyage to the afterlife. Story 5. Houska Castle gives me the chills. Here's the thing. This Bohemian fortress was constructed atop an ancient Slavo-Germanic pagan ritual site, a really deep hole. That in itself isn't too strange, but the way the castle was built is creepy. First off, its location makes no sense strategically. It served no purpose for the medieval lords of Bohemia or any potential invaders. Then there's the fact that the castle was built upside down. The defensive structures, arrow slits, turrets, and thick forest walls were on the inside, almost like they were trying to keep something in. Legend has it that a Bohemian king once lowered a prisoner into the hole beneath the castle. When they pulled him back up, he had aged 60 years and died, screaming all the while. During World War II, the vicious extremists occupied the castle briefly. They reported hearing peculiar sounds, and when Allied forces stormed the castle, they found the extremists either deceased or having fled the premises. Sure, folklore surrounds this place, but the castle's construction seemingly meant to keep something inside rather than out. Coupled with the trouble the extremists faced, adds weight to the idea that an ancient horror might reside with that ominous hole. Story 6. I've got this wild personal experience. My dad had this coworker, a really great guy. My dad was a pathologist at a women's hospital in this really tiny town, and this guy worked as his technician. The guy was dedicated to his job and fun to talk to. Nobody had a single complaint about him. He lived in an apartment right next to the office, so the night watchman always caught sight of him whenever he headed out. So one night, he went out in his pajamas, talking away on his cell phone, and gave a nod to the watchman. The watchman didn't think much of it. I mean, it's not all that strange to take a late-night walk, right? I didn't give it a second thought. The watchman didn't spot him returning, but he brushed it off, figuring he missed him during his bathroom break, perhaps. But the dude didn't show up at work the next day. Someone from the office went to check on him, and he was nowhere to be found. Nothing was out of place. He was just gone. Everyone speculated he might have met some untimely end, muggled, accident, medical emergency, those kinds of stuff. The office went ahead and filed a police report. Here's where it gets creepy. Turns out this guy had been using a whole fake identity. Every credential he handed out, fake. The references he provided, never heard of them. The family address he'd shared, non-existent. Police searched his apartment and found nothing legal, but they also found nothing that gave them a clue as to who this guy really was. We moved away a few years back, but I don't think that case was ever cracked. It's hands down the best unexplained mystery I've ever personally encountered. Well, what was that man hiding? Could he be a spy, using his work as a disguise? Or perhaps he's a sicko, doing unspeakable acts in the middle of the night? Story 7. On December 4th, 1872, the British-American ship the Mary Celeste was discovered empty and drifting in the Atlantic. Surprisingly, the vessel was seaworthy. Its cargo fully intact, except for a lifeboat that seemed to have been orderly boarded. Yet the fate of those on board remains a mystery. They were never seen or heard of again. In November 1872, the Mary Celeste voyaged from New York, destined for Genoa, Italy. Captain Benjamin Briggs commanded the ship, accompanied by 7 crew members, including Briggs' wife and their little daughter. The ship's supplies were plentiful, enough to last for 6 months, and included luxurious items like a sewing machine and an upright piano. Most experts agree that an extraordinary and alarming event must have compelled the abandonment of a seaworthy vessel. Surprisingly, the last log entry revealed no unusual occurrences, and everything seemed in order inside the ship. Over the years, theories have ranged from mutiny and pirate raids to tragedy caused by giant octopuses or sea monsters. Recent scientific hypotheses propose that alcohol fumes on board caused an explosion. Due to a weird scientific phenomenon, this explosion left no evidence of burning but was frightening enough for Briggs to order everyone to the lifeboat. Story 8. The Enigma of Caspar Hauser. I found the story of Caspar Hauser, an anonymous teenager found wandering the streets of Nuremberg in the early 19th century. Fascinating. He appeared out of nowhere without family, friends, or anyone who could confirm his identity. He claimed to have been kept in almost total isolation for his whole life up until that point. His linguistic skills were severely limited, consistent with someone who had grown up with very little human contact. Rumors began to circulate that he was actually a German prince who had been swapped at birth with a deceased baby to prevent his succession to the throne by his scheming relatives. Rather than end him, they locked him up in complete isolation and left there to be forgotten, until somehow he was freed or managed to escape. He attracted several wealthy sponsors throughout his short life, but none were successful at solving the mystery of his origins. 5 years after being found, he died under suspicious circumstances at the hands of an unknown assassin. Of course, he may have just been a deranged fantasist or attention seeker. Who knows? Story 9. November 24, 1971, a man named Dan Cooper was among the passengers in Northwest Airlines Flight 305, a short trip from Portland to Seattle. Described as a middle-aged man in a dark suit, black tie with a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and a well-kept white-collared shirt, he settled into his seat, calmly lit a cigarette and ordered bourbon and soda, paying in cash. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a 23-year-old flight attendant, warning her of an explosive. Although the exact contents of the note remain a mystery as Cooper retrieved it afterward, he demanded $200,000 in negotiable American currency, equivalent to $1 million today, 4 parachutes and a fuel truck awaiting the plane in Seattle for refueling. The flight attendant informed the captain and the airline's president authorized full cooperation. Passengers were unaware and told of a delay due to technical issues. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed in Seattle. Cooper received the ransom and parachutes, allowing passengers and 2 flight attendants to leave. During refueling, he outlined his plan to the crew: a course toward Mexico with a stop in Nevada for further refueling. 2 hours later, the plane departed. However, upon landing in Reno, Cooper was nowhere to be found. The media mistakenly referred to him as a DB Cooper. No parachute was recovered and the ransom money was never traced. In 1980, a young boy on vacation in Oregon found packets of ransom money, identifiable by serial numbers. This led to a thorough search of the area, yet nothing further was discovered. Speculation even connected the character Don Draper from Mad Men to the case. In reality, in 2017, a parachute strap was found at the side, possibly linked to Cooper's landing, adding another layer to the mystery. Those flight attendants were like friend little girls. Just a little teasing from that guy and they were ready to hand over everything. How'd you like my tales? I bet you have your own favorite creepy mystery to share, so leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, or you'll have nightmares at night. Story 10. The crew tragedy. Someone sinister took the lives of a farming couple and their bodies were tossed into a river. A week passed before anyone noticed they were gone. When their house was finally searched, they found the couple's baby girl still alive. The wife's father got blamed for the crime, but later, they found out that the detectives investigating had fake proof against him. The real perpetrator is still a mystery. What's really intriguing is that while the baby's parents were underwater, with car parts to weigh them down, someone took care of the baby the whole time. Doctors found that someone had been feeding her regularly. Story 11. The Legends of Nahanni Valley. The valley lies in Nahanni National Park, tucked away in Canada's Northwest Territory. It's incredibly isolated and remote, mostly unexplored, often called the Valley of the Headless Men. Many local tribes shunned it for millennia, considering it a sinister, haunted place, home to peculiar beings and spirits. Legend speaks of the Naha tribe, a violent group dwelling there, known for their size and bizarre weaponry, fond of decollating their victims. They vanished one day, never to return. As newcomers, frontiersmen, miners, and the like entered, some ended up with the same fate as in the legends, while others simply vanished. This place has a history of bizarre occurrences, reports of strange lights, UFO sightings, cryptids, and even tales of ancient creatures still living. Overall, exploring through stories and legends is a bizarre and fascinating area. Story 12. The Devil's Footprints. Hoof-shaped footprints were found in the snow across southern England, stretching for up to 100 miles. These footprints crossed houses, haystacks, rivers, and even rooftops, defying the expected path around these obstacles. On a Thursday night recently, there was a heavy snowfall around Exeter and South Devon. The next morning, locals were surprised to discover strange footmarks left by an unknown and mysterious creature. These footprints appeared in inexplicable locations: on house roofs, narrow walls, gardens, and enclosed areas with high walls and fences, as well as in open fields. Story 13. The Campden Wonder in England. In 1616 England, a 70-year-old man named William Harrison vanished while walking to the next village. His clothes were later found all red, and his hat was damaged. His servant John Perry admitted to harming Harrison and was punished, along with his brother and mother. But 2 years later, Harrison unexpectedly came back alive from Portugal, claiming he was sold into slavery in Turkey. But people wondered how Turkish slavers could reach England, and why they would take an old man. Even today, no one knows why the servant confessed to a crime he didn't do or what truly happened to Harrison. Story 14. One of my favorite stories is the Eilean Mor lighthouse mystery. 3 lighthouse keepers vanished from the island, leaving behind uneaten meals on the table and missing coats, among other scary signs. The unsettling part revolves around the logbook, initially meant for work-related entries but transformed into a kind of journal. In it, they detailed the horrific storm lasting several days. An experienced seaman among them was noted to be terrified and in tears. The final log entry claimed the storm had passed, and all was well. Strangely, a neighboring island reported no such storm. Story 15. The disappearance of Paula Jean Weldon. In 1946, Paula Jean Weldon, a college student in Bennington, went for a walk but never came back. People thought she might be on a trail called the Long Trail in Vermont, but nothing was found there. Some odd things happened after she disappeared. A waitress in Massachusetts said she saw a girl who seemed upset and looked like Paula. When Paula's dad heard about this, he vanished for 36 hours. This made people think he might have something to do with Paula's disappearance. There were also stories that Paula's home life wasn't as nice as her parents told the police. She didn't come home for Thanksgiving and she might have been upset with her dad. A local man in Bennington said twice that he knew where Paula's body was, but he couldn't show the police. Without proof or clues, the case got colder. Some people even thought strange things, like that Paula was taken by outer space visitors because of a special energy in the area called the Bennington Triangle. Story 16. The Circleville Letters. In 1976, people in Circleville, Ohio got letters filled with hate that caused a lot of trouble. The letters were stamped from Columbus, and they accused a school bus driver, Mary Gillespie, of having an affair with a school superintendent. One letter even threatened her husband's life if he didn't stop the affair. Sadly, in 1977, Mary's husband died in a strange car accident with fired at him. The sheriff said it was an accident, but people got letters saying the sheriff was hiding something. The letters didn't stop, even after Mary's brother-in-law, Paul Freshour, was sent to prison for writing the letters and trying to hurt Mary with a trap. But even when Freshour was in jail, more letters kept coming, and he got one too. Freshour was released in 1944 and said he didn't do it until he passed away in 2012. Nobody knows who wrote those letters in Circleville. Some think it was Freshour, while others think it might have been Mary herself, using the letters to plan and carry out her husband's demise. Those letters were intriguing, don't you think? If it was truly Mary herself who did all that, I guess she was a thing for wrapping the men of Circleville around her finger. Story 17. Rico Harris, a towering 6'9" former Harlem Globetrotter basketball player, had faced legal issues before but was turning his life around. He went on a drive from Southern California to Seattle to live with his girlfriend. Somewhere near Sacramento, feeling exhausted, he mentioned to his girlfriend on the phone his desire to explore the mountains. After that call, all contact ceased. A few days later, his car was found by a patrolman near a mountain rest stop. An extensive search began, yet there was no sign of Rico. The strangest part came when a driver reported seeing a 6'9" figure walking along the highway, just a mile from where the car was found, a week after Rico vanished. Another search began, discovering massive footprints, size 17, on the ground that weren't there before. They seemed close to finding him, but then nothing. No traces, no body, nothing. Where did Rico vanish the first time? Where was he for that entire week, and where did he vanish to again? The fact that someone could disappear twice is what makes this so mystifying to me. Story 18. There is a local story about the girl known as the Annandale Jane Doe. It was December 1996 when, in the dark of night, she entered a small cemetery and settled by a mausoleum, looking out over where children were laid to rest. She wore headphones, finished her brandy, then ended herself. Near her lay a small Christmas tree, a backpack, and a Minnie Mouse fanny pack. She left a note, saying she had taken her own life and included $100 for her cremation. Her ashes remain at the local police department. And even now, here in the DC metro area, no one knows her true identity. News from 2022 said that this Jane Doe is someone named Joyce Meyer Summers. For 25 years, she was no one. Well, how was that for a final story? Did it get a little too disturbing for you? It seems like you're really into horrifying stories like this one. So go check out What Are Some Serial Killer Facts? Story 3 will give you goosebumps. See you on the dark side.